Hello, and welcome to Mitten Backstage. I'm Dr. Snedeker. We're not in any normal office. I'm in the Bear Den currently. This is Mark Lavengood's studio. I'm going to be carpooling with him. At the time of this taping, I'm carpooling up to a festival in Marquette tomorrow morning, so I was like, I could do the interview here. But today's interview is with Jay Jackson. Now, if you don't know Last Gasp Collective, if you don't know Kalamazoo's music scene, if you don't know R&B from the, R&B soul, hip hop, Black American music from West Michigan, you have to check out Last Gasp Collective. They just put out a new record called Our Daily Bread. It was a project that was recorded at a campground called Our Daily Bread, and it was a retreat site. The band recorded all the tunes over a 5-day period. And then when, this was in the middle of the pandemic, so things got pushed back, and it is now out for people to listen to. You can listen to it on all the platforms. But we sit down and chat about that experience creating the album. We dissect more of how our creative lives are put on hold or pushed around because of the pandemic. There's an appearance by his adorable new daughter. She's just adorable, and she's probably going to be amazing at all the instruments because Jay is a producer. He's a keyboardist. He's a guitarist. He's a rapper. He's a collaborator. He's a band leader. He sets the pace, as he says it. So it was great to sit down and chat with him today for the return of Mitten Backstage. Quick aside, also an update about the podcast. We're thinking of a new way to present it in a way that fits with the busier schedules that a lot of musicians find themselves in now. I played 15 at least festivals this summer, so there's a lot of time in cars, a lot of time staying overnight in different places, not a lot of time in studios and places I could record podcasts. So, the podcasting and things will be in kind of the fall and winter, going, maybe into the spring. And I'm recruiting my friend and a former guest of the podcast. You've seen some of her edits, Mackenzie Mattis. Great work done by Mackenzie and everything that she's contributed to the podcast. But things are still being ironed out. So I appreciate your patience and, even taking the time to listen to this rambling intro. Things are happening, and, I'm getting back into the rhythm. I'm beating the burnout as best as I can because it was super fun this summer, but not a lot of time, and miss doing this type of stuff, chatting with people. So I won't give a whole spiel because I've already taken up enough of your time for the intro. Where if you've followed the podcast, DrSnedeker.com is where you can find a lot of different things. The podcast is hosted on YouTube, Spotify, different audio streaming platforms. You can also go to patreon.com/DrSnedeker and support these podcasting and my greater musical endeavors with your contribution every month. It can be as little as $5. I'm going to be creating a $1 tier soon just because, every successful Patreon has a thank you tier, I think, at least from what I've seen. But whether you contribute money or you share the episode, as long as you're engaged and having a good time, let me know. Like, comment, subscribe, all those things. And let's get into today's episode right away with Jay Jackson. Thanks for, being on the podcast today. You're actually the first, you'll be like the first new episode I've done in a while.
Really? That's awesome. I'm honored. I'm so happy. I thought that you obviously were one of the first persons that popped in my mind to reach out to get some promo going. And I've loved the podcast, so I've been wanting.
Right.
But I know it's so exclusive to keyboard players, so I felt like, no, it's not for me. It's not my place to ask to come on.
Well, and it's funny because that's probably messaging on my part. When I started podcasting, I just went full, because 2021 was like, all right, there's some gigs happening, but it's still not back to full steam.
Yeah.
So a lot of my weekdays are free, and to fill that time, I was doing I had a solo podcast where I would just improvise, I'd have some kind of keyboard or MIDI controller and then just talk for however long. And then Mitten Backstage is what this one is, just talking to Michigan.
Okay, got you. So there is a differentiation between three?
Yeah, so it's down to 2 now because the other one is left as a piano. I stopped the solo one.
That's the one. Yep. I couldn't remember
Yeah.
the name. I wasn't going to try and fail, but yeah, that's the one I thought was the main hurrah.
Yeah, it's funny. Mitten Backstage definitely feels like the main one, and then Live as a Piano is like it's gonna be like cool DLC because I have some interviews coming up with some touring keyboardists
Nice.
and there's not it's that thing where it's like I think I'm just gonna release clusters of episodes when they're ready, and then just that's gonna be how that podcast works. But
yeah,
it's an ongoing process.
Releases. No, I understand for sure.
Yeah, because
I'm honored to be here, man.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Thanks for being here. And yeah, thanks also for, listening to the new Last Gasp record. Like so many things immediately were just like, oh, this is like, it sounds great. Like the production's great. The writing was cool. The little like samples and little, included storytelling elements were sweet. Like the narration or the guest artist.
Yeah.
There was a lot of like, because sometimes it can be hard to like articulate a collective, and I feel like this record and most what you guys put out, it articulates like the personalities of everyone involved, but then these newer collaborators still kind of feel part of the larger family.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was the goal was, I guess, a collage. That's how I looked at it to begin with, was just trying to create a collage, hence the symbolism in the cover art. But I guess it wasn't, it was, I hate to use the cliche word organic, but it was very organic. It was, I guess, somewhat strategic at the end, just trying to stitch everything together. But as far as all of the pieces and all of the patches, that was very organic, and that was just fun. And it was really exciting just seeing it happen, honestly. As much as I was involved, I felt also like a third party to watching a lot of it create itself. So that was really cool. But yeah, it was just a big collage of friends, family, inspirations, and yeah, different people just excelling at what they do the best.
Yeah, and well, and the name kind of, because when you were starting to advertise or at least mention the Our Daily Bread, just the posts, I thought it was, the first thing that went in my head was like kind of the shared like gospel or church in general. Like Michiganders have a lot of religious background.
Yeah, and obviously that was 100% a religious inspiration. Where we recorded at, it's the actual campground is called Our Daily Bread. It's actually owned by a family of mine. So my aunt and uncle have this huge, I guess you would call it like a health and wellness, rehabilitation property that they use to bring people out and just try holistic medicine and just different remedies for obviously religious purposes, but also just health purposes. And so they have a big multi-purpose building out there. And I just asked, like, hey, do you mind if I bring my hip hop rap collective out there to record some music? And I'm sure they were reluctant at first, but they were willing to do it. They let us come, and it went great. It was amazing. I say we were there for 5 days. Wow. And so, yeah, that was kind of just the cornerstone of the whole project, was this religious Our Daily Bread inspiration. And I guess we tried to cater to that a little bit through the process, but obviously it went all types of different ways, and we just let it happen.
Yeah, well, and Our Daily Bread, like, I think of the, at least where I know, I've heard it, the the Lord's Prayer, and it got me thinking about like, it just using it as like a way to almost explain like, hey, this isn't just art we're doing. This is like, it's, it's a daily practice. It's life. It's, it's not just like, hey, I felt happy and all these songs are happy. Like, there's a little bit more dimension and more, not that every song, and every band needs to be super deep, but it seems like you guys always like to, like, you uplift the collective, but then you also are all collectively telling each other stories and experiences because there's a shared unity versus a collective that's, could be, like Snarky Puppy, they're a big family, but like, everyone's got a different life.
Exactly. Yeah, and especially with the pandemic taking place right as we recorded the album, everyone was so splintered. We were still connected, obviously, like you said, as a family, similar to Starkey Puppy, but priorities really shifted, and everyone kind of had to hone in on what was really important to them, and just tend to their responsibilities. So as that happened, and we were still in the creative process, you see a lot of that in the project. You see a lot of people, I guess, venting, for lack of a better term, as their current situation in the project. So you hear all these different, especially in the lyrics, you hear people telling kind of their current stories, and it's cool. I like it because it's real spatial. You get whipped over here for a bit, and then you get taken over here for a bit, and it's because it's coming from all these different perspectives and viewpoints and current life experiences. So absolutely. And then no one's like, oh man, I don't know if you can hear that train. I live right by a train. Sorry.
No, the noise suppression, it's doing its best.
Is it working? Cool. That boy, technology impressive. That impressed me. But
great.
So yeah, everyone's telling their different stories, their different perspectives, but it's really cool that no one's silenced. Everyone, no one's ever like, I don't know if you want to say that, or maybe we shouldn't put that in there. It's so just no one's stifled, no one's point of view or artistic expression was stifled, and that's one of my favorite parts. That's where the family comes into play, because as much as we're trying to make this great piece of art, we're also trying to let it be a therapeutic tool for everyone. It's like, that's my brother. I want him to be able to cope. This is a coping mechanism for him just as much as it is a coping mechanism for me. So to stifle his opinion or his voice or what he's trying to express is not copacetic to what we have going on here as a collective. So that's what I like. Thinking when you mention family.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny with the timing of when this record's coming out.
Yeah.
Going into, Earth Radio, we leave in a couple of days for our, we're doing like almost 2 weeks writing and recording. Even though we have stuff we recorded and wrote last year that we've been playing this summer, that stuff's almost done being mixed, and we'll get it mastered and start that whole chain of promotion and whatever. But then we also, we wanted to almost like go back to how we did the first record, but with the new solidified quartet, because the last few years have been adding people to the shared collective, and like Jordan's done some recording for us, and other people have been featured, and there'll be people featured on the upcoming record. But this is going to be we have a couple prompts, if the earth could speak is this kind of the overarching prompt.
Yeah.
And then we're going to be spending a lot of time together, some camping, some on a nice, cabin property on a farm.
Very similar to what we did. That's awesome. It's
like a lot of the same elements.
Yeah. So it'll be the four of you, the four core?
Yeah, it'll be the four of us, and then Justin's fiance, she... the people who own the farm, it's like friends of her family. So, and she's worked that farm a lot, helping take care of it over the years. So, she, we like that she comes anyway, but there'll be times where the band's going to go do stuff, and then she's got her own work. She's a yogi and a doula, and I'm sure she's got a million things to keep track of. We'll be, somebody told me the name of the farm and the studio, but I can't remember either one.
Oh, fair enough. That's fine. You said you'll be there 2 weeks?
Yeah, it'll be a chunk of it will be, weather pending. We're figuring out days we'll camp and hike, and then there'll be time to recharge in the, in the cabin where it's cool, there's a shower, there's a, there's other things. And, and so it's, hearing a record like this, Our Daily Bread, where there's a lot of knowing all the people involved, and, you can hear the layers, you can hear the little personalities, you can hear the, the mood and the progression of all the arrangements, but then you hear all the little moments that each person brings to the table. It's like a it feels like, like Black Radio or something, like an album that's like everyone's coming together to do stuff, but like it's bigger than just the collab part. It's like the sum of its parts.
There you go. That's the way to describe it. Definitely the sum of its parts is much greater than the individual pieces. Yeah, I guess that's what we pride ourselves on, is finding a way for all of us to come together, and the end product being something we can all enjoy and look back at and be proud of.
Right.
Yeah, and to know, like, I couldn't have done it without like every single person involved, or every single addition that was given from other people, or contribution. So that, man, it makes me proud to be able to do, because I know it's not easy. I guess it's I wouldn't say easy, but I'm trying to think of the best term. I don't want to say effortless either, but there's not a lot of thought for us that goes into trying to make the collaboration work. Like, we're such good friends, and we all trust each other so much, and we have all kind of carved out our role, and everyone is so willing and happy to star in their role. So not much thought goes into that. Everyone feels very free to do what they do best, and then be content with how it kind of combines with everyone else's contributions. So yeah, I hear a lot of bands talk about that. I hear a lot of, not even just bands, just any project that requires multiple people. It's sometimes that's a point of emphasis, is trying to figure out how to mesh everyone, how to blend personalities, how to blend skill sets, and we really don't struggle with that. And I'm so thankful. And that's one of the beauties of our collective, I think.
Yeah.
Or if we do, they don't tell me.
Yeah. That's where all the letters come in.
They do, and they just don't share it with me. They talk about it behind my back, which is fair too. But.
It's like, why are there like 10 new invoices? Yeah, you didn't pay me enough for that gig 3 years ago. Holding on to it.
This is fair. To my knowledge, we don't have an issue with it.
As it stands,
at this moment, maybe this will inspire them to speak up. I don't know. We'll see.
Right. I just get a message from Jordan. Don't trust a single word out of his mouth.
Just gonna flip my phone over for the remainder of this podcast.
Yeah, you just cancel the mid-interview. Like, I gotta go. There's a lot of phone calls.
Yeah. Some backlash.
Well, and I think for people who also are like, they're just discovering the project, whether it's through this interview or, listening to the new record, or they find stuff you've already put out.
Yeah.
I think people also don't realize how much work you personally, like, it's a collective, but you're, producing, you're writing, you're playing instruments, you're freestyle, you're rapping, you're singing, you're helping to coordinate everything so that it, I think that's also part of it too, that having that many people who are trusting, it also ends up like when you kind of help put together the final mix or the final product, the vision you help start and then, see it through to the end.
Yeah.
There is that, like, it's a collective, but you feel like, okay, there is someone like helping to steer the ship and,
absolutely
make sure everyone's voices are in the mix in the best ways.
Yep. I don't know. I'm real shy about all that stuff. So I guess people are always like, oh, you need to promote that. You need to let people know. And I've just gotten to the point where I'm willing to put it in the credits or put it on the back of the album of what I did. And a lot of pressure from Jordan. Jordan's on me all the time. So Jay, you need to, you got it, blah, blah, blah.
You need to put your name on it.
Yeah, he's been adamant about that for years, actually. And I don't know why, but I don't really, I respect everyone so much. And I'm so honored that these people who every person involved can do this as a career and should be getting paid. Their salaries, their main income should be provided off of this. And to think that they're all willing to trust me and work with me and let me kind of lead things, or I like to call it set the pace. I like to look at myself as the pace setter. is so humbling, and it's scary at times. It's
I can imagine.
it really is, man. So as much as I'm like proud of myself or want to promote myself and hype myself up, I'm just thankful to be in a position with these outstanding artists and just people in general that are willing to allow me to do that. And I don't want to say or do anything to mess it up. And I don't really want all that extra attention. I just want the product to speak for itself. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that. So that's why I don't promote all that as much as possible. Like if you look at like my Instagram, I don't have an Instagram. I don't really have a Facebook.
Right.
I'm a fairly private person, very like introverted in a way. And so, yeah, I enjoy doing all that stuff behind the scenes, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and I think of people like the ultimate introvert. I don't know if you know about Bill Wirtz at all.
No, I'm not familiar.
He's
I guess that would make sense.
It's so funny though, because he, if you look up his name, a lot of what he's known for is he makes original music where the lyrics are kind of like, they seem nonsensical, but then there's also like some weird, like almost like Dadaism humor, or like, there's some like larger overarching mood that he's conveying through like what seemingly disjointed, goofy lyrics. But then he, there's a little bit of Peter Gabriel, a little Toto, a little jazz, like it's this blend of, he plays multiple instruments and produces it. But then he also makes these animated music videos that are like part, rudimentary 3D and 2D animations and simple drawings, but everything's like timed really well to all the arrangements. And then he'll insert himself either on instruments or, he'll edit himself in singing. And, but yeah, he doesn't gig. He doesn't tour. I've only seen like 3 interviews with him, and those are all like 6 years ago. He has one of the most viewed videos on YouTube, the history of the world. It's got like 191 million views.
Absolutely look that up as soon as we are done here.
Yeah, he'll like disappear and just not tell anyone, and then he'll post like a screenshot from a video he's about to drop, but he won't give a date, and then he'll put the video out, and in like the first couple days he'll get 1 million plays or 2, like the audience is just there waiting.
yeah
So I see that as a potential model of just like, okay, there are people who can work behind the scenes and just like push it out to a person who's better at being the face of something or better at promoting or something.
Yeah, the longer I've done this, I guess I did it out of necessity at first, like being the front man, the big voice, the energy, and then as time went on, I was like, I don't really want to do this. It's not that it didn't feel true to me, I guess. I enjoyed it, and we needed it, and it worked to get our name out there and get the brand going. But at some point I was just like, I get more enjoyment and satisfaction out of like bigging up my brother, like doing anything I can to exalt and promote these people that I'm working with. I'm such a fan of them. And I acknowledge like certain skills that I have, and I'm thankful for them, and I love doing it. But for me, I get more gratification out of helping other people.
Yeah, and well, and I feel like that translates in the music too, because I mean, like you were saying, you gave people plenty of space to like tell their story, or it's a part cathartic process, like taking all the craziness of life, pandemic, and being like, all right, what do I have to say? What do I need to play? What has to happen to help the healing process?
100%. That's what it was. So therapeutic, extreme healing process. Yep. I don't think it started like that. Not even that I don't think. I know it didn't start like that. It was very strategic. Like, oh, we got to get together. We got to create an album. We got to follow up Seen Not Heard. People are waiting. People are hungry. We got to do it so we got to strike while the iron's hot. So, but then what happened. And then obviously got put on the back burner for quite a while. Our intentions were to release it shortly after we recorded it. I think we recorded it in the pandemic had already started, so I think August of 2020, and that was kind of a cool way for us to get away. We're like, all right, we're tired of being locked in our houses with our families. Let's come together and create something since we can't tour or perform live. And then we'll put this right out, and then whatever happens, we'll promote it and shoot a bunch of music videos. And then I think we all underestimated the extent of what the pandemic was going to be. And so that plan definitely got derailed for quite a while. And then personally, I was in no space or place to commit to this project the way I knew it required to be committed to. So it got put on a back burner for quite a while, but I was happy to come back to it almost a year and a half later. To be honest, I'll say I probably stepped away from it for a year.
Wow.
Where I was just like, okay, I think I'm back in a healthier place. And it wasn't even, I came back to it. I didn't so much stuff happened. And I wasn't creating any music. I was not doing anything artistic whatsoever. I love shooting videos. I love photography. I did none of that. I did not touch my guitar. I did not touch my bass. I did not touch a piano. And anyone who knows me knows that is crazy. That is unheard of for very close to a year. Like I would have these weeks where it's like, I'm going to do it. I would try, maybe do it for a day, and then there was just nothing there. I was really deflated. But then, maybe a year or so went by, and then other smaller projects kept prompting me. Jessica Ivy, our singer. Jay, I need beats. Jay, I'm trying to get my album going. Jordan, Jay, listen to my album. What do you have? What do you hear? What do you think I should do? What critiques do you have? What constructive criticism do you have? Sheridan Harris, I'm back writing, man. Send me beats. That's a lot of it was. A lot of people just like, send me beats. I'm back going and I need beats. I'm the go-to when you need instrumentals. That really just hits me up. So that was like, I don't have any. I don't have it. So I felt obligated to kind of lock in and stockpile some stuff. So when all my friends were hitting me up for stuff, I would be able to, accommodate them and send some stuff out. And so that's kind of where it started. And I kind of just got back into the groove, and I was like, hey, maybe I can open up this ODB file. I was almost scared to open it up just because I didn't want to not fail, but I didn't want to start again and be like, I can't do it. I can't do it. And I didn't want to keep repeating that process. So I was very reluctant to open it back up. But when I did, I was like, whoa, we had this. Oh my gosh. And then the inspiration just went crazy. So then maybe 2 or 3 months, I just completely finished it.
Wow.
Yeah, that was very recent. and then I was like, okay, now we just got to put it out. I didn't tell anyone. I just, one random day, I was just like, if I don't pick a day, I'm going to keep editing and mixing and adding. And my fiance, and I talked to a few other people. I always talk to Jordan. Jordan Hamilton is like one of the closest friends I have in this world. So if I don't talk to many people, but he's one I will. And I'm just like, man, I can't stop. Every time I open it up, I just hear more and I see more, and I don't know when to stop. He's like, you got to stop at some point. So it's just like, if I just pick a deadline, if I just say a release date and I release it publicly, I'll have to stick to that. I won't have any choice. The public already knows. You already said it. You can't let them down. And that's exactly what I did. One day I just said, October 7th sounds good. And then I was able to force myself to finish it in 3 or 4 weeks. And here it is. So I'm excited. It's such an interesting process how it all came together, but wouldn't change any of it.
Yeah, it's definitely like, the album definitely, as a listener, it's like you need time to marinate. But then think of how, like, with the pandemic, it's like how much music in general has been like Yeah, we started it. We were going to put it out in 2020, and then
Yeah.
everything shut down, and
Yeah, exactly.
we went back to the drawing board, or this changed, or we got a new guitar player. Like
such a common trend in the music industry, or just our arts industry right now. But yeah.
So it's cool that like they're because I had a similar like deflation period in 2020 where I was like, okay, I'm not playing out, and like, okay, I have these streams I can kind of use as a way to play something.
Yep.
And like, right away we kind of got thrown into like, I was part of that, the idea for the Artist Relief Fund with the Michigan Music Alliance, and
absolutely,
and like, it was good to have like certain projects, but then like there was always something in the back of my head, like, as I'm doing, trying to do things, write album reviews, still feel engaged, even though it was remote. It was just like, okay, but I don't want to be just in my house. Like, what, I don't want to just do, little projects. Like, I'd love to get something more substantial, or like, work on some new music. And luckily with Earth Radio, we went into the quarantine having just recorded Reanimate, like finished up those recordings in February 2020. And so there was like some back and forth, with that, something to focus on. And then top of 2021, we recorded a single that we don't really play out, but that was another point of like, cool, I just had all this work canceled with this musical, and I have this residency and some other things that are popping up, but it was nice to, start 2021 feeling like, okay, we're not quite there yet, but we can start meeting and getting the, the bus on the road again.
So some type of light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah, I get it. There was just a while I just didn't see that light. It was frustrating. It was, I don't know. It was very discouraging.
Yeah, and then like sometimes having that light be like, you're just swapping in and out different bulbs, and you're like, is this the light? Is this one? Is this the light that's gonna stay on? Like
LED? And I go, halogen? I don't know.
This light's running kind of
out. For sure, absolutely. And that's kind of, I think, the beginning. That was my first phase of the pandemic, was like, okay, I still see a light, and I'm trying all these different things. I'm, like you said, I'm still doing these small different projects, all in-house. And a lot of them, not a lot of them, I'm very proud of most of them. I was fortunate enough to produce a whole audio book for Fable the Poet, Marcel Price, which it turned out amazing. I think it's like 60 or something tracks. So yeah, all these poems, and I did all of the production behind it. And that was really fun. That occupied most of my time when things first shut down. So yeah, that was one of those light bulbs that we're plugging in. It's like, okay, I can see myself doing this, but still, this is different from, what was going on prior, and the vision and the plans that we had. So it was awesome for the time being, but still, once that ended, it was like, okay, now what? I'm still not able to get back on the rails the way we were. So what next?
Yeah, that's what's been like, because Earth Radio had a really busy summer, and it was really surprising, but it also was like this moment of like, okay, there was some undercurrent we weren't aware of like, the music we had put out, people were listening to it. And it was that reminder of like, hey, we might not see the full extent of how, the produced art, like where it ends up, or, how it might be transformed or, adapted or combined with another art medium. Like, so I always have to remember too that like, like our daily bread, a daily ritual, a daily mantra, like just thinking of ways to, even if it's for 10 minutes, be engaged, be creative in the gaps, even if it's not an instrument either too.
Yep. Yeah. I guess I'm getting to that point. It was a while that, it wasn't even a consideration. But no, you're right. It was, I guess what it was, I was going so full speed, and then it just stopped so suddenly. Anything less than that seemed inadequate. Anything that wasn't that 100-mile-per-hour was just like, I feel inferior. I feel like I'm failing myself. I feel like I'm failing everything I've built up to for so many years. But I guess that wasn't the case. Like, you got to be cool with 50 miles per hour because it's still forward progress at the end of the day. And I guess I struggled with that for a while. Like, this 50 is not, no. I was just going 110. I can't.
Yeah. Well, and I think of like how, I feel like the quarantine started the undoing or unraveling of like a lot of the habits that I had picked up in music school of just like, it's like, oh, I'm eating fast to go quickly sneak into practice before class, or like, oh man, I'm, like all these habits that were really stressful, but that fit a really busy lifestyle. And then when everything slowed down, I was just in my house for like that first month, like, what do I do?
That's interesting. That's so true. That is so true. Yeah, I guess you're right. A lot of those habits were unhealthy. Those were burnout habits, I guess.
Yeah, and I had especially with this summer, like Earth Radio, we've been talking about how it was super fun and we did a lot of cool stuff and it was a good, growth year. And, we were all very burnt out, just like we still love playing the shows, but it was just like, on the outside of that, like the travel and it's like, all right, well, I just got out of your car. It seems like I'm in your car again for 3 days.
Yep.
And it's nice that there's kind of this general consensus, and even with David, like the youngest member of the band, who by all accounts should just be like full steam. I mean, he's doing a lot of projects, but we're all thinking of ways of like you were saying, like, okay, what is 50 miles an hour when you've been going 100? Yeah. And it's like, 50 miles an hour is like it's still fast. It's faster than, people who are just stuck at 10.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I just have to remind myself that there are days that, especially, being gig economy, like there's days I don't have to do anything, like a rest day. I could, socialize. I could, consume, media or something that might be inspiring, or I learn something.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's super copacetic to longevity at the end of the day. And I think a lot of people forget that. And yeah, that does lead to burnout, I think. Mm-hmm. I've also been there, obviously, every musician has or artist has, but it's a balance, I guess. It's a balancing act, trying to find that fine line.
Yeah, and you, well, and if I'm remembering right, you have a family, like kids and stuff?
Yeah, I do. Yep, I have three daughters. Three girls. I just had a newborn, actually, yeah.
Wow, congrats.
Thank you so much. 7 weeks old.
Wow, just fresh out the oven.
Fresh out the oven. Still warm. Still
just wrapped in the hospital cloth, the blankets.
Literally, we took them up from the hospital, so we got a bunch of those.
I'm not paying $10,000 for these blankets. I don't get 30 of them.
They said fill your bag, so we filled the bag.
I wheeled the bed out with my wife still in it, just in the car.
Exactly. We were not shy about that at all.
Yeah, but that's like, I think of all the, the people talking about like priority shift. It's like, raising a family, but then also, school, like, okay, now you're having to manage learning at home, and then you're still having to work. It's like this whole, like, to even think about art too in those circumstances is like, I think a lot of people had to go through, like survival mode. Like, okay, I'm going to take this temporary job and this will get through because I didn't qualify or for unemployment or whatever.
Yeah. I was, at the beginning, I think a lot of us were super optimistic that it wasn't going to be this long-term culture-altering thing. But that's exactly what it turned out to be. And once we realized that, that's when survival mode kicked in and reprioritizing kicked in and future planning and like, what next? What if You know what I'm saying? I need to prepare for the worst case scenario. And that's a lot to take on mentally for anyone in any walk of life, in any career. That's scary. So I think we all dealt with it as good as we could and came out on the other side, if that's what we want to call this, the other side. But
right.
Yeah. I know, speaking personally, that's what I went through. It was a lot of like what's really important to me, thinking about kids, thinking about these responsibilities I have. How do I explain to them years from now, oh, well, you know, things were going great and then the pandemic happened and just couldn't quite get right after that. So not wanting that to be the case, I had to start thinking about the future. And yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, I just turned 30 also. So
Okay,
it's like, it's like those, you know, the thought of like, oh, I'm in my 30s. Like, there's no like, I'm only in my 20s, you know, like that. You know, I don't know if I ever use that excuse, but like the perception of like, oh, they're just young and they're still figuring out. Like 30 is when people start being like, sir. I've been called sir so many times the last couple
of months.
Hilarious.
That is hilarious. I recently had that same realization. We were at the carnival and I had on this high school t-shirt, like a basketball shirt. A lot of people know I play basketball, and some young kids, teenagers came up to me and said, oh, you go to I guess it's a Galesburg shirt. I didn't even know which high school it was. And they're like, oh, you coach there? And I was like, coach there? I couldn't be a player there? And they're like, Jesus Christ, I look like a coach? That was life altering, that moment. And I was like, I am old. The game has changed. People don't look at me as a high school kid or a college kid anymore. I'm a coach of a college kid or a high school kid now. Yeah, I'm still recovering from that moment, but I'll make
it. I'll be good by the time I'm 40.
We'll make it.
Yeah, well, and I think of like, you know, like pandemic, reevaluating your priorities, and then I think turning 30, especially, you know, after a summer that was insanely busy and kind of, you know, what felt like the follow-up to 2019, but to have, you know, that feeling of like, okay, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what to do with my time or my energy, but I know I'm responsible to like either, you know, myself to take care of the bills and all this.
Yeah.
And I'm responsible to the community. Like there's, you know, there's just a point where we all have that moment of taking a step back and figuring it out and like maybe not being as like communicative and just, you know, trying to get right before you, you know, show up for your people. And
100%. It's like you feel an obligation to be busy, I guess. It's like I should be doing something. I know everything stopped and I got to reevaluate how and where to be productive and you know, prepare for the future and get things done. But I feel an obligation to do it. And I don't know how necessarily, but yeah, it's stressful too, man. It's stressful. It's like I just know I shouldn't just be sitting here.
Right.
I know that much. So
yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's, you know, it's also recognizing that for me, it's recognizing the sense of urgency is not, because sometimes it can feel like, you know, like anxious energy and you're like, I don't really know why it feels anxious, but it's that kind of compulsion to be doing and be, you know, part of a community again.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It's like this nervous, anxious energy. Yep. I'm not sure where to place it. Yeah. Man, I can relate. It's giving me flashbacks.
That's what I feel like Mitten Backstage has been for a lot of people. A lot of people I talk to, it's been like, you know, especially in 2021, it's like, you're the first person I've really like dissected my quarantine year with, or you're the first person I really like examined how my life is different, you know, just having, you know, questions or conversations.
100%. Yeah. That's such a real analysis of how I felt. I mean, even still, obviously I feel much better now, but that was a very accurate analysis of how I felt at that time.
Yeah. Oh, I see the little baby. There he is.
She.
Oh, yeah. Daughter. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. On the camera. See the people and her mom.
She's looking, it's just like, I was sleeping. What's happening?
She's not crying, so she's having fun.
Yeah, it's adorable.
She'll let you know.
She's gonna be like, I don't know. Do you follow Von Henry at all?
Nope.
Keyboard player. He, I mean, I know he's big in the gospel scene. He, plays in Nashville or lives in Nashville. He has a project called the Smoogies, but he also plays with, he subbed with Snarky Puppy at the State Theater and all, he's.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But he's been posting videos with his baby. He'll be at the piano playing, and there's a video where his baby's just like pushing down on keys, but she lands on like one part where it sounds like super hip with how he's voicing them.
Yeah.
Like, what? My baby's playing keys.
Start them young.
As you're mixing, like she's just like hits the keyboard and you're like, I didn't think to what?
That's it. That was the missing piece.
I should ramp the compression all the way.
How did you know? Of course it should have been 4-3. What was I thinking? I would say so. I see the potential in her to do that. And then just crawl off. Duh.
Just like I know what I'm doing. I may not be able to say complete sentences, but yeah. I feel the vibe of the track.
But go to the bathroom on my own. But listen, I know good music when I hear it.
Yeah, very very adorable. What was her name again?
Michelet.
Wow,
yeah,
that's beautiful.
Thanks, man.
It's very like, it's like an expression.
Yeah,
it's not like Hank. Like just
no, like, it is not like Hank. It's very different. Yeah.
Like I imagine, like she'll just walk into a room and it's like Michelet, and it's like a gesture of just like she's here.
Presence. Yeah, someone told me it sounds French. I was like, okay, I can see that.
Yeah, it's she could.
I had not considered it at all until someone said that the other day. It's like, fair enough. Yeah, very French. Yeah, oui.
Oui.
I don't know any French. I just know going there. Yeah, that sounds French. Yeah, no, I think it's Italian. I don't know.
I know. I'm like, wait, where am I?
Stop while we're ahead.
No. Yeah, it's and just thinking of that was another thing I saw a lot of, like with quarantine, just like a lot of my musician friends who, if they didn't already have a family, they were, starting to not completely settle down, but like, they found the house or the the condo or whatever, they got the kid going, and now that they're able to get back out into the world and work more, it's like, okay, now there's this new motivation of like the kid and
I think that's one of the benefits or the pandemic, how it benefited a lot of different people is like instilling this family unit, these close relationships we have to one another, whether it's girlfriend, boyfriend, daughter, son, father sometimes. It just really reinforced these relationships because it was kind of, for a while, that's kind of the only people we could interact with.
Right.
So it was like either if we didn't know if we hated each other before, we know now.
We have definitive proof.
Definitive proof. And I think vice versa, it allowed us to know like, yo, we really do love one another. And I think we forget about that when in the hustle bustle of things, when you're not required to spend all the time with each other. So I can definitely say that about my family and just being with my kids every day, logging into Zoom classes with them, doing school, and I'm with them all day, every day, walking to the park. It was awesome. I really enjoy how it like reaffirmed our relationships with the people closest to me. So yeah, not to sit here and bash the pandemic for the last hour, but definitely some positive things came out of it for sure.
Yeah, I feel that, it put things into perspective of like, with who I'm interacting with, but like I'm naturally kind of partly probably because of, religious upbringing, probably also part of, just always be, I joke that I've been busy since 8th grade. Like I just
Were
haven't
you
stopped.
raised religious? Not to like take you off your train of thought, but
Oh yeah. Yeah, I went to Madison Square Church growing up in
okay.
Grand Rapids. It was before the year that I, started focusing on music school, and it was after my freshman year at Grand Valley because I tried to be like a youth leader, and I'm like, music school there's a lot of work, there's a lot of practicing. They're giving me a lot of music.
Yeah.
And I've worked for churches. The last church I worked for, it's been a few years, but I worked with Jeremy Simpson when he was at Southridge, and I worked with, I've worked in and around different. I worked for a Lutheran church for a little bit, a Catholic church for like a semester because that was really weird and it's not fun. There's a lot of like,
by weird, I mean not fun.
It was a lot of like, I was hired to accompany the high school choir, and then it turned into, all right, we have these 3 songs today for the mass with the high school choir, but then the lady who's been the music director, she's trying to retire, so you're just gonna like, it was literally like mid-service, I'd get, she'd play, the prelude or whatever the first in the order of masses, and then she would leave, and then the choir director would look at me like, okay, now you have to go play. I'm like, play what? Like, I have to sight read a mass? Like, what do you mean? And then
what paying you for?
Yeah, and then like, they get to a part where it's like, oh, we recite the Nicene Creed, and it's like, okay, cool. Our Father art in heaven, I know that. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, yeah, but we sing it. And I'm like, what? What key are you in? Supposed to follow the priest, he can't sing. Like,
that's hilarious, man.
Like, Jesus can't take the wheel because nobody's in a car. It's just everyone's everywhere.
Holy expectations.
Yeah, there are a lot of side eyes from the priests of just like,
imagine.
Yeah, it's like, God hates when you mess up. You know that. Start reading. Pay me like $50. I'm walking in here and you got like a giant atrium and like thousands of dollars of equipment, and you're like, here's $50.
Man, I'm not sure that is exclusive to Catholic churches.
Yeah.
I've played my fair share of churches. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's, continuing down this tangent for a sec. Here's the thing too, where like I'm at this point too, where like you think of like how, Christian is a loaded term because it's like, are you an evangelical, politically right-leaning Christian? Are you a, Southern Baptist fundamentalist, brimstone, hellfire? Are you a, Hillsong, barely touching scripture, just doing a rock concert for like white people in the middle of, some neighborhood somewhere? Absolutely. Are you 60 people who all have the money to own a building? Like, like there's the definition of Christian, or, even some of the other more traditional religions. And, there's things that haven't changed, but then the things that are changing aren't being recognized. And
absolutely.
So I see a lot of the people that I went to church growing up with that are doing cool stuff. A lot of them are involved with like New City Kids in Grand Rapids, doing like, after school programs where it's engaging, students with like art and music. And especially like when I heard the New City Kids band last year at this festival I was working at, they, they're playing like, songs that you'd hear on wedding gigs or corporate gigs. And then they're playing some, church repertoire. And I'm like, these kids are getting ready to, be contributing members to the scene more than they're just like having fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I see the benefits of a lot of my upbringing and a lot of the people I interacted with. And then I also see like where some of the things shifted, whether it was because of politics or just people staying in those insulated environments and not really getting out into the world. And understanding things are different, and just because you might have a humorous criticism of the religion doesn't mean you're a heathen. Like,
absolutely not. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was raised religious myself, very religious, Seventh-day Adventist actually. So,
my cousin just converted to that.
Really, to that? Interesting.
Yeah.
What?
After, yeah, he got married, and his partner was a Seventh-day Adventist. So,
got you.
He just converted, and which, my dad's side of the family, aside from a lot of the cousins and uncles being musicians, my grandpa, he's 92. He's still, he'll talk scripture and biblical scholarship, but he went to Yale for, seminary, and he was a pastor for decades, prison ministry and different church sites. And, but my cousin, he's at the University, I think, of Denver, he's in Denver, and he's getting his doctorate in I don't know, religious philosophy, theological philosophy or something. So there's definitely a lot of discussions on those topics that are honest, but also kind of piques that curiosity I have with history.
That's interesting. I guess I didn't have that. I don't come from a academia, theology side of the religion. Just people who are super devoted to the religion. Yes. People are just starch followers of evangelizing and believing in the word. So yeah, I guess that would be different. There was no long debates of the philosophy. We were all in agreement. And we were just how do we spread this to as many people as possible, as fast as possible?
Well, in a lot of those conversations, I feel like I didn't have, because my family's also really spread out on that side. Gotcha. Washington, Massachusetts, Florida, and then Michigan. So, a lot of these conversations have happened in recent years, but it is interesting. I think of when I was in high school, I would do, my Sundays were it was all right, I'm going to the morning service, and then maybe I'm, doing some after service thing, a pancake breakfast or some, volunteer thing. And then I'm helping to set up for youth group, and then I'm attending youth group. And then on Wednesdays, it's, Grand Rapids Initiative for Leaders, and we're doing after school, semi-religious things, but also life skills and learning about community organizing and social justice issues. And which, a lot of positives to having a busy schedule that was also engaging.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, it's.
If I had that same thing, that the term you use that was so funny to me is semi-religious. Because as I was growing up, I didn't feel like any of it was semi-religious. I feel like it was all 100% religious. There was no room for anything else. So that's funny.
Right.
Just semi-religious. The schedule was just as busy. Just it wasn't semi anything.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
I guess yeah, that's one of the aspects of Seventh-day Adventism that I thought was interesting as compared to a lot of other religions and more, I don't know, contemporary, modern style religions and adaptations to older religions. But yeah, it's I know.
It's that thing. I always, one of my ideas that someone will probably do by the time I'm retired, just old, probably not. I'll still be playing places, but the idea of going around Michigan and doing even if it's a coffee table style book where it's photos and a little blurb about because there's so many churches. It's how long would it take to catalog every church in Michigan?
It would be a process because you'd have more popping up by the time you finish the book. As you're in the process, more would be dissolving and more would be popping up. So,
right.
No, better get on that quick.
Start now.
Yeah, start today. Post haste.
Yeah, because it is interesting to think of there's. Especially with places like Grand Rapids where there is a lot of cross-pollination, but then there's also very, it's almost like a meme that's existed, meme being a segregation issue, but you can be like, this is where, majority Hispanic population lives. This is where all the black people are living. This is where all the white affluent people are living. This is where the poor white class, like it's very broken up into that, into the graphics.
Very strong for sure.
And that, translates to the church scene sometimes where some people share different, or they, it's different churches, but they share the same rep, for the worship or something. But then, one pastor's like, women shouldn't preach. And then the other pastor's a woman. So it's like very different.
Yeah. That's why, I don't know. That's, I guess, why it's hard to be like, oh, well, who's right? Yeah. Who's got it right? If you're so similar, but if your viewpoints are so scattered, it's very tough to say. Maybe no one's right. Probably not.
Yeah, it was called a wash. Let's just
there we go.
Figure it out.
I like that. Let's call it a wash.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at with it. I'll take my good from everywhere. I'll pick and choose.
Yeah, because I'm always as long as you're like contributing positively to society, like
there we go.
But if it's religion's an easy way to take advantage of people, and I remember like one thing we would do in Grill U, because it was like leadership courses or leadership training, or I don't know, just learning about more stuff and being more engaged in our community. One of the things we would do also is just we'd take random little like a test to see how you learn best, auditory, aesthetic, whatever. And one of them was just a spiritual gifts test that we took in youth group. And I remember discernment was the thing that popped up consistently. And it's that funny thing where like, discernment, like, okay, cool. I can cut through all the, I see a televangelist. I can tell you why he sucks and why he's taking advantage of people and point to the instances he's doing it. But then it's also that curse where like, people have their team sports and they don't want to sometimes receive that kind of truth.
Wow,
and
that's a great analogy.
It's like, okay, I'm putting things out there to try and inform people. And, a lot of people, I have good conversations with a lot of people, but that every so often there's pushback in a way that's like, you're not pushing back because you have an opinion or a counter. It's just you're mad.
That's your herd. Now you've infringed upon my people. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. As accurate as your viewpoint may be or not, or as much as I even may agree deep down inside, this is a shot. I guess that was my thing growing up. I guess not growing up, after I grew up, just like, I can't argue with a lot of the morality of this stuff. Like, sure, yeah, family unit's good. Yeah, you shouldn't lie. Yeah, you shouldn't steal. Yes. This is all, I can't. No argument for me. It's just kind of the infrastructure of it all and how political and divisive it becomes at some point. And that was kind of my biggest gripe with a lot of it. So, yeah, to this day.
And I think I've been thinking a lot about the English language too, is, how there's times where like a word that has like multiple uses and meanings, it can, that kind of I don't know if it's abstract or not even vague. Like there's just so many definitions. You can use it in different contexts. You can direct it emotionally to be like, this is the way I want to convey this word, even though it's not what's actually this word, is defined as, so I think of like all the times the Bible's been, or religious texts in general have been translated into English. And it's like, there's some mistranslations. There's some things we need to discuss. Like I get trying to make it more readable, but no one's reading.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Everyone's cherry picking verses.
Very much so. This fits what I'm trying to convey. This sounds good, aligned with my agenda. Whether it's an agenda or not, we'll use this one. Yeah, and because there's a lot. I think musically too. Like there's a lot I've gleaned from playing in churches, and there's a lot of cool experiences I've had that are very unique to church spaces. Yeah. Oh man. Yes.
And like that's another thing I think is interesting too, is like I don't know if it's because so many Black gospel born musicians get put into these like, powerhouse pop groups, like Justin Bieber's band or something. Like every single one of those people are like killer, like all born from the church, just shredded gospel players. So then now there's this like continued, I mean, it's just, the general trend of society's fascination with Black art, where like now there's like, Kanye Sunday services, this like gospel art exhibit, or like, people, PJ Morton, like put it, breaking out of Maroon 5 and being like, no, I actually like R&B, soul, and gospel. And all of his audiences can sing every other audience under the table. So yeah, it's interesting that there's this cross-pollination of people learning gospel music who've never been in that environment. And you can hear, with any art form, like the imitation, sometimes it's not authentic, or like, you might use the right chords at a Hammond B3, but like exactly.
Those aren't the voicings.
That's more jazz. Like
100%. But I imitation is flattery, and I think it's like a coming home, an acknowledgement of home base in a way. I love it. I really do love it, because a lot of these genres, especially, R&B, which is especially now offshoot of pop is like an offshoot of R&B. And what is R&B, if not gospel, if not Sunday morning? That's all I hear when I listen to it. Being raised in the church, I was like, different words, same voicing, same runs. This sounds like I'm at church. We're just not. They're dancing, and that's kind of the biggest difference. They're moving their hips instead of just clapping.
Yeah,
there's a lot more hip gyration. That's a difference. But other than that, I just see it like coming home and acknowledging that. So I think it's really cool, and I love it. I'm also biased because that's like my favorite style of music. I love R&B, gospel. I'm biased. So don't listen to me.
No, well, and it's good to have that perspective too, though, because I use a lot of humor that can sometimes be wrapped in cynicism, just because a lot of things have gone well for me. But like, I just see the whole, the entire thing, and I'm like, things are happening.
Very much so.
But yeah, I don't know. I think, we both learned a lot from quarantine, and we both, are thoughtful and reflective people in that regard, and just thinking of, I don't know, how our surroundings influence us, but also, taking a step back and being like, okay, how do I, the brakes have been hit hard. Like, what happens when I start the engine again? Like, what am I driving towards?
Yeah, absolutely. How do I start the engine again?
Yeah.
Which direction are we driving? It's the truth. I think we're still figuring that out, and we'll continue to work at it every day. I don't know. I'm looking forward to this point where I'm like, it's back, or we got it. We have survived. We recovered. We figured it out. I'm looking back laughing at that time. That's funny. I'm curious when that might be. I feel better every day, and I feel closer to that, but definitely not there. So
I feel that too, as as weird as it is to think of, like, how busy I was this summer, and just, telling people I'm on these festivals. But in my head, I'm like, there's an arrival point that's like almost there.
Yeah. Maybe it exists, maybe it doesn't, but I'm curious to see. If that'll actually happen.
Yeah.
Wake up one day like, yep, we made it through. That was a hell of a time, but we made it.
It took all this time, and we, didn't think it would happen, but now it's here.
Didn't think it could happen, but here we are.
Yeah.
Probably not. Probably not. In all honesty, probably not.
Yeah. Well, congrats again on the new record.
Thank
Already
you.
read Last Gasp Collective. Where should people find out? I mean, you said you're not up front of the scenes, but you got links.
Yeah, yeah,
I'll put
definitely.
links in places and stuff. But
Yeah, me personally, you know, I'm still, you can still access me on Instagram, and I do a lot of the Last Gasp Instagram. So chances are, if you do any contact there, reach out in any way, I'll see it.
oh, cool.
Yeah.
It's easy one-stop shop.
One-stop shop. There you go. Exactly. But yeah, so the album will be out tonight at midnight. I'm so excited. I'm
awesome.
Thankful to give it to the people, put it out there, release it into the atmosphere, and yeah, hopefully people enjoy it and it resonates with someone. And yeah, I'm so proud of the team and the crew and all the collaborators, every single person that contributed, however much they contributed, or there was just hanging out with us while we were there. People were cooking food. We had to eat the whole time we were there, to the people making the food. Nezzy, obviously she sings on the album, but she was cooking up dishes the whole time. And Lauren, who did the cover art, all the artists, like every single artist that we reached out to was so willing to contribute. No questions asked, no monetary compensation required, just people who respected us and just mutual respect and were willing to contribute to the project. So yeah, I really want to like name everybody, but I'm super scared I'll miss someone. So I'm definitely going to put it out on social media, some type of post that just shows some thanks and gratitude to every single person that contributed.
Yeah, and I tried to include everyone too in that local,
Yeah.
it's like you get paragraphs for local spins. I'm like, okay, let's name all these people, because like it's a whole, it's partly too introducing the scene to like a new crop of like people who are doing things that they might not know about.
Absolutely, yeah. There's like some old heads on there, old heads for lack of a better term. Rufus Ferguson.
Oh yeah.
Just a maestro in the community, one of the most humble musicians I know. Because when I listen to him, I'm just like, man, you shouldn't be talking to a mere mortal like me. There's no way I should just be able to call you and you answer the phone. That's crazy.
So, I should have to sacrifice something to get to
some blood or something. My firstborn, I don't know. But for you to
cash, like, here, just take my money.
Yeah, right. So yeah, guys like him to like people I don't think as many people are familiar with, like Kazi the Gypsy from Detroit, who's very, very known in like the earthwork scene. I was introduced to him by Seth Bernard. He brought him out to Earthworks Harvest Gathering one year, and I was just like, who is this kid and why can he rap so good? And yes, immediately I'm waiting at the end of the stage for his set to end so I can introduce myself, and ever since then we've kind of really connected musically. And again, just another person I reached out to and was immediately willing to contribute. You know, Sam Peters here in Kalamazoo, who's like the mixing, mastering guru right now. I don't think anyone goes to anyone in Kalamazoo but him. I don't think any other, no disrespect. This is all, I say this in jest, but I don't think any other engineers exist right now in Kalamazoo. So yeah, he was willing to not only master the project, but contribute vocals, and he mixed his vocals in such a crazy creative way at the end of Seeing Stone. And another Grand Rapids legend, Mark Beyond from Rosewood 2055, is actually stationed in Atlanta. He contributed a verse and sent it in. So yeah, the list goes on. But like I said, I'll definitely make some type of public post to inform everyone of who all contributed, or just read the credits. That's also on the back of the album. Yeah, I'm just so thankful and appreciative for like these guys I respect, and if I didn't know them personally, they would still be on my playlist. I don't have iTunes, I have YouTube Music, so they would be on my YouTube Music playlist, and I would listen to them on a daily. So to be able to call them like friends and associates is amazing. I feel crazy, honestly. It's a little bit unbelievable to me. They're so good. They're so good.
Yeah, and yeah, anyone listening to this, like, people go check out the album. It's, it's something you can sit down, learn something from, and you could just enjoy it like flat out because it's great. Yeah, definitely.
Check out all the individual people's works on their own. Yeah. That's
part of the fun of, these, the Snarky Puppies, the collectives.
Yeah. Yes.
Now you've got 12 new albums to listen to.
Exactly. The floodgates have been open to you. You got nothing to do but bask in it now. Thank you for having me. This was so fun. Such a good conversation.
Anytime. Yeah, and I'm sure we should brainstorm, some co-bills, or maybe I'll see you on some fests next summer. Like there's
absolutely, yep. And some collaborations. You should have been playing on this one, but
yeah, I'm always down.
All right, great, man.
Awesome. Well, yeah, enjoyed time with the fam and all those good things, and we'll see how it all shapes up.
Let Mark know I said hey, and have a good rest of your night.
Jay Jackson, everybody. Wasn't that awesome? Thanks again to Mark Lavengood for having me use the Bear Den. As you can see, it is filled with instruments. Look up Mark Lavengood if you want to hit some of these instruments. I'm going to hit that piano after I'm done. But you can check out this podcast, Mitten Backstage. Right now it's hosted on my YouTube page, on my Patreon. It's distributed to other platforms thanks to Anchor.fm, like Spotify and where you might be listening to it right now. So thank you for checking it out, first of all. If you want to support, again, go to patreon.com/Snedeker. You can contribute different tier levels, get different goodies. Things are being revamped for the fall. Obviously, the podcast has gone very differently than I thought. It's a much more spread out second year of the podcast, but I'm glad to be back in doing it. So I appreciate your patience and understanding as things get busy in the world. And I'm excited to share some new stories, share some experiences, and go check out Last Gasp Collective, Our Daily Bread. It's a great record. The first listen, I was like, this thing is worth like 5 times whatever they're charging. Like there's so much good music on that record and within that band. Go check out all the other projects. You can check out links below. But I'll leave you until the next episode. Thanks again, and